Alright, so if you've been following my channel over the last few months, you'll know that recently I've been spending a lot of time playing around with night vision FPV cameras. Specifically, I've been playing around with the Caddx Infra ultra low light FPV camera, and then more recently I've been playing around with the Axisflying 256 thermal FPV camera. Now, because I'm primarily a fixed-wing drone pilot, much of the testing I've done on those cameras so far was whilst they're installed on some of my fixed-wing drones, and this did work okay. However, those types of drones aren't really suitable for aerial cinematography, and that's just because they aren't especially stable platforms. They tend to move around a lot in the wind, making it hard to keep the camera aimed where you want it. It's therefore for that reason that I've decided to build this. This is a large, heavy lift, multi-rotor drone that I've optimized specifically for shooting stabilized, multispectral night vision footage. In today's video, I'm going to give you a tour of this aircraft. I'm going to show you all the parts that I've used, how I've put it all together. And then a little bit later, I'm going to take you out with me for a flight so I can show you what it's capable of. Let's go. Okay, so to start the tour, let me tell you about the airframe. This is a Holybro X500 V2 heavy lift quadcopter airframe. Now, I bought this as a ARF kit, which meant that it came with the motors and the ESCs pre-installed, but there's no other electronics. Everything else I had to add myself. Now, the motors are 2216 920 kV motors, and the ESCs, which are pre-installed in the arms here, are BL Heli 20 amp ESCs. Don't know any more information than that because there isn't any more information about that available on the internet. The only thing to mention about this frame, obviously it's all carbon fiber other than these heavy duty plastic parts here. But the only other thing to mention is the propellers. These are 10-inch propellers. I think they are 1045. And these are self-tightening, so you can easily take them on and off without needing to use any tools, which I quite like. Now, this airframe is very much designed as a heavy lift sort of airframe, and it's designed to carry cameras. So down here, I've got the gimbal, and this is a Turret T3D Mark IV gimbal. This is originally designed for the GoPro Session back in the day. But yeah, I picked up one of these. This is a 3-axis gimbal, so you've got sort of stabilization on all axes there. And this is what's housing the cameras. So on this side here, we've got the Axisflying 256 thermal FPV camera. And then over here, we've got the Caddx Infra FPV camera. I just had to design and sort of 3D print this little mount here. It's not particularly pretty, but it is entirely functional. And I just printed that in TPU just for a little bit more sort of like vibration isolation. Now, the way I've got this set up, I'll show you the wiring a bit later, but the way I've got this set up is that not only does this gimbal provide stabilization, but then using a scroll wheel on my radio means I can manually pitch the cameras up and down. So as I'm flying, I can very much aim this camera exactly where I want and, you know, have a good little look around. Just moving to the side here, like I said, this is the Caddx Infra camera here. But when you buy a Caddx Infra, you don't just get the camera, you also get the little AI box. So just to show you, I've got the AI box installed here, sort of just beneath the main compartment of the quadcopter, but just above the battery. And that seems to work very well. I wanted to deliberately put it sort of as far away from the GPS as I could, because for whatever reason, the AI box on the Caddx Infra produces like a lot of like RF noise. And I sort of found that sort of tends to sort of upset GPS units and cause a lot of interference. But by having it down there, having two sort of like big thick plates of carbon fiber between the AI box and the GPS, it provides a lot of shielding. Because carbon fiber is electrically conductive, it actually does work quite well as a RF shield. So yeah, having that separation between the two means that the AI box isn't causing any interference for the GPS, which is good. Now, talking about the GPS, so this is a Maytech M10Q5883 GPS. So it's not just a GPS, it's also a compass. I've just got it installed in a very basic little 3D printed mount here. And the reason why I've installed it exactly there in the middle is because it's at the point that's furthest away from the 4 motors. So hopefully the electromagnets in these motors won't upset the GPS. So yeah. Now, underneath this plate, obviously I can't really show you this without taking it apart, but I'll put a picture up in the corner. But underneath this plate is where I've got the flight controller. And the flight controller I've chosen to use for this is a Maytech F405 VTOL flight controller. The main reason why I've chosen to use that flight controller is just because I know the Maytech brand very well. I know they make very good stuff, and the VTOL flight controller has a nice big PDB, which made it nice and easy to wire up the 4 motors. It's just a good flight controller, and it just happens to fit quite nicely in there. I did have to solder 90-degree pin headers onto the flight controller. Normally you just have the upright pin headers, but if I did that, there wouldn't have been enough room to install the plugs and then put the top plate on. So I had to source my own 90-degree pin headers, just so I could then have all the plugs plug into the side of the flight controller, which allowed me to then install the top plate. So yeah, so that's the flight controller. Now moving around to the side here, so this is the radio receiver. I fly with ELRS, so this is a Radiomaster RP1 receiver. And there's not really much to say about this other than the fact that I did just design and 3D print this little mount here just to hold the antenna in place and also hold the receiver in place there. Now moving around to the other side of the aircraft. So the 2 FPV cameras down here, the Thermal and the Caddx Infra, these are both analog FPV cameras. So that therefore means that I'm using a analog video transmitter. And the one that I'm using for this build is a GEP RC May10 Pro video transmitter. I think that's a 2.5 watt video transmitter. But the main reason why I went for this is because it's got a built-in fan. This aircraft is going to be kind of designed to sort of just put in the air and it's going to just kind of hover. It's not really one you're going to move around very much. It's just going to sort of just hover in one place in the air to kind of have a look around. I was a little bit concerned that that meant that you wouldn't get very much airflow over the video transmitter. So that was one reason for buying one with a fan in. But the other reason is because sometimes I may just want to play around with, I don't know, the thermal camera and stuff whilst the aircraft's on the ground. I may not always want to be flying it. So having a video transmitter with a built-in fan means that I can run this system, I can play around with the cameras whilst it's on the ground, and I haven't got to worry about the video transmitter overheating. So yeah, and a quite nice thing as well is, I hope you can see it here, the video transmitter just perfectly installed onto this top plate here using the holes that are already there. That's just really nice and keeps the build nice and clean. The FPV antenna I'm using is a QRC Singularity. As far as I'm concerned, these are just about the best FPV antennas you can get. And I think the only other thing to mention about the build is this guy here. So I did mention this in one of my previous videos. This is a propeller board. It's a small board with a microcontroller on board. And that's interfacing with the Thermal FPV camera. And that's allowing me to change the color palettes. When you buy the Axisflying 256 thermal camera, by default it shoots in black and white mode. However, it is capable of shooting in multiple different color modes, but you need a microcontroller like this to be able to interface with it so that you can then, switch and change the settings. So yeah, so that is an overview of the build. Now I will put a wiring diagram on the screen here. It's going to look a little bit intimidating, but I promise you it's not actually that complicated. If you just sort of take your time and look at it, hopefully it will make sense. And I think the only other thing that I need to mention is kind of the elephant in the room. So I did say in the thumbnail that this is a cheap thermal multispectral drone. And I promise you that's not clickbait. But the total cost of this build was sort of around £850. I'm not sure what that is in dollars. I'll put it on the screen. Now, you might be thinking to yourself that £850 doesn't sound cheap. That sounds like a very, very expensive build. But when I say it's cheap, I mean that it's comparatively cheap in comparison to what you can go out and buy for yourself right now. So I had a look online, and DJI makes a thermal drone. They make a couple of thermal drones. The cheapest one that DJI makes is the Mavic 3T, at least at the time of making this video. And the Mavic 3T costs £4,800. So £4,000 more expensive than this. Now granted, that drone is going to be capable of a lot more than this. It's going to have some sort of like some fancy AI features on board, and it's going to have a longer flight time and stuff. But if you're just interested in just having a thermal drone, this is significantly cheaper than anything that DJI makes. Now, I did also have a look to see if there's any other thermal drones out there, and I did find one made by Autel. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Autel makes the 640T thermal imaging drone, and that comes in quite a bit cheaper, but still quite expensive. That comes in at £2,500. So hopefully you can appreciate that, yes, whilst £850 might sound quite expensive to sort of be building your own quadcopter, if you're interested in sort of having a thermal imaging sort of multispectral quadcopter, actually £850 is a hell of a steal, and it's a lot cheaper than anything that you can buy off the shelf. So anyway, that's the little tour of the aircraft. I showed you all the parts, I sort of showed you roughly how I put it all together. Let's now go out and do a flight, and I can show you what this aircraft is actually capable of. Let's go! Okay, so it's about an hour and a half since sunset, and I'm aware you can't really see me at the moment. Get my phone torch out and kind of just about make me out here. As you can see, it's pretty dark. It's not fully dark, just because at this time of year, you know, it doesn't get fully dark until gone midnight, but yeah, to all intents and purposes, it's nighttime, it's dark. I certainly can't really see very much of what's in front of me other than sort of the lights of a couple of buildings in the distance. That little green light you see there, that is the drone. I did forget to mention that I've got a Flightron strobe attached to one of the legs there. So that's just going to be so I can maintain visual line of sight whilst it's flying. And then just over here, here is my radio. And as you can see, I've got a little FPV screen on here. That's what I'm going to be using to, you know, look at the cameras whilst I'm flying. So the drone is all set up and ready to go. So I'm going to set this camera up just here on the back of my car, and yeah, let's take her out for a flight and see what happens. It is quite windy, so I'm a little bit nervous. This thing is sort of gusting around sort of about 19-20 miles an hour, so this will be an interesting test. See not only how well does the quad handle flying in the wind, but also how good is the gimbal at stabilizing the cameras whilst flying in the wind. Anyway, enough procrastination, let's get this up in the air. Right, so we've got 18 sats, so let's arm the aircraft. And let's take her up in the air. There we go. Just do a little hover test there just for a moment, just see how she handles the wind. Yeah, she looks like she's doing a pretty good job. So let's just move her forward just a little bit away from me, and then also just want to take her up to, I don't know, about 50 meters or so, I reckon. So the view you're seeing on the camera at the moment, this is from the Caddx Infra. This is the ultra low light near infrared FPV camera. And yeah, as you can see, it's a very, very good camera for seeing in the dark. When I get it up to a little bit higher, move a little bit further forward as well, just because I don't want it to be in the null zone. So I get up a little bit higher. Might cap it about there actually, I think that'll probably do. So centre the throttle. So yeah, if I can now use the scroll wheel on my radio, as you can see, I can pitch the camera up and down. I can look all the way down if I want to. That's annoying, the glare from the Flightron strobes getting in the camera view there, that's a bit annoying. I'll have to move that. Gimbal's kind of wobbling a bit there. Not sure what that's all about, and I guess that's something to do with the wind. But yeah, as you can see, so I can move the gimbal up and down, and then if I want to look left and right, I just use the yaw on the aircraft. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn around, I'm going to have a look at myself. So there I am down there, you can see my car. It looks like I've got a light on in the back of the car, but I don't. What you're seeing is literally just the light from the FPV screen and my radio. That's just illuminating me, but Caddx Infra is very good at taking a very small bit of light and making it look very bright. I mean, this building to the right of me here, it looks like it's heavily illuminated, but I promise you it's got very, very faint lights around it. Very faint lights. So yeah, so this is just having a look around at the moment with the Caddx Infra, and yeah, as you can see, you can make out quite a lot of details. I mean, I can clearly see, you know, all of these bushes here, all these trees, no problem. I can see that there's a river in the distance there. Make out buildings in the distance. So I'm looking around the field. So there's something dark in the field there. I can't really tell you what it is, but yeah. Yeah, the camera works very well. It certainly can see in the dark much better than I can see with my my bare eyes. So yeah, so let's now aim the camera directly at the car. And then what I'm going to do, because I know this is the bit that most of you guys are interested in, is I'm going to switch to thermal. Excuse me. So there is a thermal view of me in the back of my car. Now, as I mentioned, sorry, I'm just struggling to get the camera locked directly on me. It's because the scroll wheel on the Radar Master Pocket that I've got is notchy. So it always wants to lock in at certain points. It's quite hard to get the gimbal exactly where I want. I do need to modify my radio to correct that. But yeah, as I mentioned, so the Axis thermal camera's got different color palettes. So this is just a random one. But what I'll do now is I'm going to cycle through a few and you'll see that you can see different detail depending on which color palette you use. So there's a different one. I wouldn't say you can see a whole lot different on that one, to be fair. So red one, you can make out a little bit more detail in the car of that one. Green one, that one works really well. So you can see so much more detail in the car. You can see the engine at the front there is glowing because it's warm. You can make out sort of the wheels. And you can see me waving, look. That works really well. Let me try a couple of different colour palettes. Some works quite well as well. You can make it a bit more detail. Just cycling through a whole load of them here. As you can see, different colour palettes. That one works really well, actually. So I think that is white hot and black is cold. And that's the opposite. Black is hot, white is cold. That one works really well. Look at that. Depending on the situation and what you're looking at, different colour palettes work better than others. In this situation, that works really, really well. Let's have a little bit of a look around whilst we've got this mode enabled. So there's that building I told you about. Whole load of detail you can make out on the roof there. Could I see any of that with the... So yeah, the infra, you can't make out anywhere near as much detail as you can with the thermal. Oh, that's really well. I think I can hear a train coming. There is a train track just beside me here. I think there is a train approaching there. So you can kind of see it. Let's go to the thermal view. And there you are, look at that. Excuse my cough. So yeah, look at the detail that you can see in the thermal view. Clearly see that the wheels are very hot and the underside of the train is very hot. The roof is much colder. So let's aim it here. Let's now go back to the infra view. So I mean, yeah, you can see it with the infra. Look how much more detail you can see with the thermal. Let's try a couple of different colour palettes on that. Looks cool in the colour there. I want to see what the green one looks like. That's definitely my favourite of the lot. So that's a black and white mode that also has red. Notice how the hottest parts, the wheels there, they're glowing red, but everything else is black and white. That's quite a cool mode. Get a lot of thermal information with this mode. So go back to the train there. Yeah, there's the green one. The green one does look very cool, doesn't it? It's proper like military grade night ops looking view there. But yeah, in this particular use case, I think that colour palette there works very, very well. It's interesting as well, isn't it? So like you look at the train with the Caddx Infra, you can clearly see the lights are on in the carriage there. But if you go to the thermal, you can't see anything through the windows because, as I've discussed in some of my other videos about this thermal camera, infrared can't pass through glass. So that is very interesting. So yeah, that's cool there. Just have a look at the train. Let's have a look just across the city while I think about it. So that reddish yellow thing there, that is the river. You can see it a little bit more clearly here actually. So on the infra camera it's appearing as that black band. Yeah, it's kind of appearing yellow there, yellowish red. But yeah, on the infra it just appears as black. Because it is sort of rapidly approaching summer at the moment, the water is quite warm. Let's just have a look at the river in the distance there. So yeah, there is the water. It's interesting how you can sort of see reflections in thermal in the water there. Just have another look in the green view there. Those look very cool. Interestingly, I've just spotted, I think that's a couple of people there walking some dogs. You see them there? Just trying to get the gimbal to lock in exactly where I want it to. Yeah, there's a couple of people there walking dogs. Can't see anything with the infra, just because it's there's so much light coming from those distance buildings, which is being blown out massively on the infra. But yeah, with the thermal there, and those people must be a good sort of like 400, 500 meters away. Do you see what I mean about different color palettes show different things better? Those people definitely show up better in the green palette or the red palette than they do in others. That one works quite well, I suppose. That works amazing though, look at that. Yeah, the standard black and white mode, that's a very good mode for being able to pick out people at a distance. And yeah, like I said, you can't see anything on the infra there. So just have a look up over in this direction, because like I said, on the infra, all you're seeing is a lot of light coming from that direction. That's just various buildings that are in the distance. There's a big sort of tower block there. How does that look in thermal? So yeah, you can see a lot more detail on the thermal there than you can with the infra. Looks very cool though. See what else we've got around here to have a look at. So I'm interested to see if I can see anything down here actually, because my car was parked. I got here a little bit early, so my car was parked just above the crosshairs there. So I'm wondering if there's going to be a thermal signature. And yes, you can just about see it. There's a little bit of a thermal signature there. I'll have to put a little graphical overlay there to show it. But you can kind of make out a thermal signature on the ground there, which shows where my car was. And this is interesting as well. These little white dots you can see here, I noticed this whilst I was parked here. There's a lot of rabbits in this area. Can't see them on the infra, but yeah, loads of rabbits. They're appearing there as the little black dots. Let's try a couple of different colour palettes so they don't show up so well there. Don't show up all in that one. Different colour palettes sort of have different temperature thresholds for certain things, I think. Green works quite well, but yeah, I think the black and white mode, or possibly the black is hot mode there, that works the best, I think, for picking out people. And again, there is me. Go back to that one. Yeah, the white hot mode. Like I said, this is the default mode. That does seem to work, you know, very well for this. So just looking off across the city now, into the distance. So you can see with the infra, you know, you can make out quite a lot of details. Certainly better than a normal FPV camera. And the thermal, you can see a hell of a lot more. Look at that, on the infra, you can see the stars. That is cool. So I wonder if there's any people around here. There is a sports ground over here, and there's a path there. Doesn't look like there's anyone there. Let's have a little look around. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's anyone in the sports ground today. It's a shame, because it would have been nice to have seen a few more people. So I should point out, I actually forgot to mention this earlier on in the video. So this drone is running RD Pilot. And the battery that I'm using at the moment is a 3300 4S LiPo battery, which is far from an optimal battery for this. I could easily put a much bigger battery on board this aircraft, but I don't have one at my disposal at the moment. So with the battery I'm using at the minute, I am finding I sort of get around like 10 to 15 minutes of flight time. So I am sort of rapidly approaching the end of the flight time here. Quite a good thing, or quite a nice feature about RD Pilot though. Let's have a look in this mode quickly. A nice feature about RD Pilot versus iNav is the fact that you can actually program the quad to land when the battery gets flat. As far as I know, iNav doesn't allow you to do that. There you are, I can see it on the screen there, it says battery fail safe, so that's going to give me an initial warning. And then, yeah, in a minute, probably less than a minute, it's then going to land itself. So just quickly change back to, I want the black, yeah, I want that mode there. So yeah, any moment now, you can see that the quad is going to land itself. So yeah, anyway, I know it's got quite a short flight, but as you can see, this is working, you know, really, really well. If you saw my previous videos, I think there might be a rabbit there now, look, see a little glowing patch just underneath the E on my compass? So the black dot there, yeah, I reckon that's a rabbit. Yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, as you can see, this system's working quite well. If you watched my previous videos where I tested the thermal camera on my Hewing T2 VTOL, you'd know that I struggled to get the camera to look where I wanted because it was sort of wobbling around in the wind quite a lot. But yeah, this setup, you know, even though it's actually quite windy, I think you'll agree this platform's actually very stable. And having the gimbal here, as well as the fact that it's, you know, a proper quadcopter that's actually just inherently a much more stable platform, is working very well. So there you go. There is the battery failsafe is now properly enabled. You can see in the top right there, it now says land. So the aircraft is now bringing herself down to land. I'll switch back to the Infra. I have the ability to reposition the aircraft as it does this. So I'm going to bring it forward a little bit so it's a little bit closer to home. Annoyingly, I've just noticed that the strobe light on the aircraft is turned off, so I can't actually clearly see it now. It's just appearing as a bit of a silhouette. Let's bring it a little bit closer. 3 meters, 2 meters, 1 meter, and we're landed. And then you can see there the aircraft disarmed itself. That worked really, really well. Let me grab my phone and I'll grab the camera and we'll walk over there and we'll go grab it. Okay, so there you go. There's a flight on my Holybro X500 V2 multispectral night vision thermal imaging search and rescue drone. Like I said, I know that wasn't a particularly long flight, and that's because the battery I got on board, you know, isn't optimal. But for like 10 to 15 minutes flight with that battery, I don't think it's too bad. And yeah, once I put a bigger battery on there, I should be able to get more flight time. Hopefully you agree though, like, no, this worked, you know, pretty well. The aircraft does still need a little bit of work. I need to do some tuning to, you know, the way the quad flies. I also need to do some tuning on the gimbal. But yeah, it flew pretty well and I'm pretty happy with it. Hopefully you'll agree. The footage from the cameras looked nice and smooth. Certainly a lot better than it did when I had the cameras installed on my Hewing T2. It makes a big difference having a gimbal to sort of stabilize the footage. And also just flying with a quadcopter versus a VTOL plane, it's just a much more stable platform. Now I am planning to make a few modifications to this aircraft at some point in the near future. One thing I'm sort of would quite like to do is just add some LEDs sort of around the aircraft, just to sort of make it a little bit easier to maintain visual line of sight whilst you're flying in the dark. I also quite like the idea of maybe adding a LED spotlight. I'll probably put that on top of the cameras, so it's actually on the gimbal. That way I can aim the spotlight as I'm sort of moving the cameras around. I don't know whether I'd do a visible light or a infrared spotlight yet. That's something I'm gonna have to look into, but I think that would be a cool little feature. Now, one other thing. So I don't know whether you've seen, but Caddx has actually brought out a new low-light FPV camera recently. It's called the Gazer. From what I could tell, it's basically the same as the Caddx Infra. However, this one can actually shoot in color. So I have ordered one of them, and hopefully that'll be here in the next couple of days. And I am looking forward to testing that out. I'll probably install it on this aircraft alongside the Caddx Infra, so I can then do a direct comparison between the two, and I'll hopefully be able to show you guys that as well. So yeah. Anyway, I basically run out of things to say now, so I'll leave you here. But as always, if you enjoyed watching this video, please do give it a like. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers, guys. Bye.